Chair, fellow speakers. My speech tonight, I think, is appropriate to the weather this evening. Not just this evening, but I think for the last month, 2 months, it's been wet, windy, cloudy, miserable, flooding, the whole lot. Okay. Well, for those of you who don't know my background, just a couple, I'm a retired airline pilot. So I'm going to explain what the bad night is. With a little model. This is what I used to fly. Now, you're probably wondering, do I plan on going on holiday? I don't know, the weather's pretty bad. What do the pilots go through? You've seen some of the YouTube videos of, airplanes coming in and doing things like that. But did you know, for these bad nights, we're actually trained for it. The training actually sometimes has no relation to what is actually happening. But I can explain a little bit through this model. So I'm going to hold it like this. Let's say the runway is this way, and I want to land onto the runway. Now it's okay when the wind is straight towards you, because you always land into the wind. But the wind is never where you want it to be, is it? It's always coming over from over here, or from over there. Oh, that's not too bad. But what happens when it's wet? This particular airplane did not, well, there's still a few flying around, does not like wet runways in a crosswind, believe me. Because on this airplane there's 16 tires on the ground, and what was that word you wanted me to use? Amphibious. You could turn quite amphibious. But in training, recently, nowadays in the simulator, you don't actually have to be in the airplane because passengers get a little scared sometimes. So we do the severe training in the simulator, and we can pretend it's a dark night, black as the ace of spades. I'm not allowed to say that. Winds coming from any direction. We assume that the runway is wet. Let's say the wind is coming from the right, and I'm coming in to land. So normally I would be flying straight. But because the wind is coming from the right, have you ever noticed that the airplanes come in at an angle? See this fan on the top? It acts just like a sail. So if the wind is coming from the right, it's pushing the airplane this way. So when you have a chance, when you've opened your eyes and you're looking out the window to see what's happening, you'll see the ailerons out here flopping up and down all over the place, but you can't see the pilot up in the front fighting the controls. He's actually trying to turn the airplane into the wind, because the wind wants to push him to one direction. So you use cross control, you use left rudder, you use opposite rudder, believe it or not. But you want to turn the airplane, but you want to land relatively level. On 4-engine aircraft, because you see where the outboard engines are, the worst thing possible is to pitch up, coming into land, and tilt, because you hit a pod. You don't have to twist much. On a twin-engine airplane, you see where the engines are. If it was just a twin-engine airplane, yes, you can actually see in the videos that there's a lot of twin-engine airplanes that come in with cockeyed. Okay, well that's okay to a limit. But on a 4-engine aircraft, 747, A380, it's a no-no. So you want to land relatively level. So you practice all these maneuvers in the simulator. But when you're actually out online on your flight and you're a newbie, it's quite daunting. So you'll always have a training captain, hopefully, when you're doing your worst weather landing. Or in the old days, there were no training captains, you just got up and did the job. Now, I used to fly Boeing 707s, Same configuration, it's a smaller airplane. Here's a story. True story. Dark night. Thunderstorm. The wind blowing a hoolie, 55 knots coming from this direction. 55 knots, that is well beyond the limits of what I'm supposed to do. It's torrential downpour. Black night. I'm coming in like this, literally sideways. There's the runway, I'm coming in sideways, and yes, believe it or not, on a big airplane like this, you're allowed to actually touch down at an angle, because the main landing gear will automatically straighten you up. But on 707, they didn't have the right type of landing gear back then. So I get over the threshold, I can't see anything because the wipers are going 100 miles an hour, I can't see anything, it's torrential rain, the wind's blowing, I'm fighting, all I can see is the glow of the runway lights. Get over the threshold, I assumed it was a threshold. I touch down, and immediately I'm at an angle because I have to stay on the runway because the wind's blowing like a hoolie. I go into reverse, which is normal procedure. So the engines, the thrust goes into reverse. But when you lose control of the aircraft, which I had done, I had lost control. I was now drifting across the runway. I'd already gone into reverse because I thought I had control, but because I lost control, I was trying to cancel reverse because you have to cancel reverse because see the direction of the engine? If the thrust is pushing you at an angle this way, it accentuates the situation. It makes it even worse. It's now pushing you along with the wind to go off the runway. So I have my hands on the reverses. I went into reverse. Now I'm trying to cancel because I want control of the airplane, which is the normal situation. I can't, but because back then, because I had a flight engineer, he had both of his hands on top of mine trying to rip the reverses out of the column, and it's not often I scream. I'm screaming, "Cancel reverse! Cancel reverse!" And I ripped the thrust levers out of his hands and went into forward thrust just in time to stop from going off the side of the runway. Now I did turn into an amphibian on that airplane because there was so much water on the runway, it went up into the wheel well and took out my anti-skid. So actually I was going down the runway with all my main gear locked up. None of the tires were turning, and I hit a less wet patch, took off the whole bottom of the tires, and I blew up, 3 tires blew up and went off the main gear. But I still managed to stop by the end. So that's training, but training can only go so far.